All right, my friends, so I've been getting a lot of questions about how to use the natural fertilizers. So in this video, I'm going to explain to you exactly what you need to know to use all the fertilizers that I've already put on the channel and the many more that I will be putting on the channel, okay? So listen up. Now, the first thing, we have to understand a little bit of preliminary knowledge, and that is how a natural fertilizer works compared to a chemical fertilizer. So when you go to the store and you buy a normal chemical fertilizer, something with numbers on it, like a 20-20-20 or a bloom booster at 0-52-10, and it's got chemical ingredients in it. Now, this has been designed in a laboratory by man to bypass the natural system that exists in the soil and to go directly to the plant. So the natural way of things is organic matter falls onto the soil, microorganisms decompose it, and this is a complex, beautifully perfect process to where the smaller microorganisms, the bacteria and the fungi, they decompose it, and then protozoa, nematodes, which are larger, they come and eat the bacteria and the fungi, and then larger things come and eat them, okay? And each step along the way, this process releases nutrients that the plant can use, because the plant roots cannot directly absorb anything that is in the soil directly. It has to first be processed through the soil food web and microorganisms. Now, chemical fertilizers have come up with a way to completely bypass this. So it doesn't, look, for example, here is some, because I also use some of this for certain plants indoors only. I do lots of experimentations and stuff, so, but this is nothing that I will eat, anything I put this on. So, for example, this, you can look at the ingredients. If you're not sure if you have a chemical fertilizer or not, look at the ingredients. Ammonium phosphate, magnesium carbonate, magnesium nitrate, magnesium sulfate, potassium carbonate, potassium nitrate, monopotassium phosphate, and potassium sulfate. Every one of those is a hardcore chemical, most of them petroleum-based. Now, they have been designed by the laboratory, by the mind of man, to bypass that natural system that exists in the soil and to feed the plant directly, which is not what we want to do. We feed the soil, not the plant. But these, so therefore you have to measure them very carefully. You have to measure them with something like this, a little milliliter dropper, because you have to use exactly the right proportion of this kind of stuff, of any chemical-based fertilizer. Otherwise, you run the risk, or you will burn the plant, meaning that the plant absorbs nutrients because the plant tissue holds a higher concentration of salts in its tissue than in the surrounding environment. And that enables, because there's more salt in the plant tissue, in the roots, that enables it to draw up moisture and nutrients through osmosis, okay? But this, if we add the salts to the soil, the concentration of salt becomes greater outside the plant than inside the plant root. And so therefore, it will actually draw moisture and nutrients out of the plant. And you will see it at the farthest area from the roots. The tips of the leaves will start to die and turn brown. And we call this burning the plant, okay? So, how do we hedge against this? How do we guarantee that we don't have to worry about any of that? We use the natural fertilizers, all right? So, when we use natural fertilizers, we are actually feeding the soil, not the plant. So we don't have to be that concerned with dosages. It doesn't matter nearly like it does with using this kind of stuff. So for example, let me just give you an example. If you're using the JADAM natural fertilizer, the grass and the leaf mold fertilizer, and you've got something like this, I would say start out with a liter. This is 2.5 gallons. You can start out with a liter of the natural grass fertilizer, fill it the rest of the way with the water, and water your plants. Okay, if you have a bigger surface to do, like a 55-gallon drum, you could put a whole 5-gallon bucket into the 55-gallon drum and fill it up with water. There you go, 50 gallons of water, 5 gallons of liquid fertilizer. Okay, so, or you could simply put a cup into here. That would still help, all right? Now, if it's the fertilizers that are geared more towards like nitrogen or growth, okay, then like the urea fertilizer, you want to start off with smaller amounts of that, okay? So if we had, for example, the fish fertilizer, we want to use 1 ounce or 2 per gallon. So we'd put 4 of these maximum into this thing of the fish fertilizer. Or of the urea fertilizer, we would put maximum this into this whole thing. And then we would water the plants and see how they respond. Now, the reason that it doesn't matter that much with the concentrations is because there's no real risk of burning the plants with the natural fertilizers. So start off with like a 1 to 30 with the grass fertilizer or many of the other fertilizers I'll show you. But then the concentrated fertilizers, basically just the fish and the urea fertilizers are the only two that you really have to use in small amounts. But even if you did use this much of the fish fertilizer, it wouldn't burn the plants. It would be fine. It would just be kind of wasteful. That's the main thing. So because it's unnecessary, because what the fish fertilizer does is it feeds the community of microorganisms and it nourishes them. In particular, the fungi, they like the proteins that have been digested and decomposed in the fish. Okay, so just as a general rule, we'll say start off with 1 cup per gallon of water once a week. That's what you want to begin with. Feed them to your plants once a week. The rest of the time is water. Then if you're growing in poor soil, you can up it to 2 cups per gallon twice a week. You could do it like that as well. And then you should see the growth. The plants should look healthy. All right, so you want to train your eye, and you'll get good at this with time, to be able to see and recognize a healthy plant, a vibrant plant that is got all the elements that it needs, as opposed to a plant that is just surviving. There's a huge difference between a plant that is surviving and thriving, okay? So we want to make sure that the plants are thriving. And with the natural fertilizers, that's what we're going to do, because it's balanced. So we don't have to really, even though I will say things like, this is a nitrogen fertilizer, or this is for a growth fertilizer, that's sort of relative. I mean, yes, the urea has mostly nitrogen in it, but it also has many other things. The fish fertilizer has nitrogen, but it also has lots of calcium and phosphorus from the bones. So the natural fertilizers are balanced, and that's what it's all about. We have to maintain nutritional balance in the soil. And another question I get is about the anaerobic decomposition process, and I'll make a video specifically addressing this, but the short answer is that's nothing to worry about, my friends. Actually, we want the anaerobic decomposition process because we know in our food supply that light and air degrade the nutrients in the food, right? It breaks it down much faster. And so we want it to be without air and in the dark. And it's the same with the plants. So we decompose it anaerobically. There's nothing to fear. All the good microbes and the bad microbes exist in harmony and balance. They keep each other in check. Don't even go down the road of thinking that you have to separate the good ones from the bad ones. The human mind cannot even begin to understand the unimaginable complexity that is involved in the perfection of nature. So work with the perfection and not against it by thinking that we can selectively add certain things and take out certain things. Holistically balanced. That's what it's all about. So, okay, and one of the most important aspects of this whole process to understand, my friends, is this, that nature, the ultimate designer, the mother, has already designed the perfect system for delivering nutrient-dense food to our bodies. We are of nature. We are still in the cycle. We are nature, okay? We're not separate in any way. So the system that nature has designed for us to thrive requires the soil food web. All of the activity that happens there, the universe, the whole rainforest of microorganisms in a teaspoon of soil, that produces food that is dense and rich in nutrients and therefore flavor. Flavor is an indicator of nutrient density in organically produced stuff. So we use stuff like this, even though it is in a form that is immediately usable by the plants. It bypasses the whole community of microorganisms and it starves them to death in the process. That's why it's such an issue. But even though it goes directly to the plant and the plant can absorb it and it looks healthy and it appears healthy, and even the produce will be colorful from this, it doesn't have that same nutrient density or the same flavor, and it definitely doesn't have the same life force energy that nice, organically produced, naturally grown produce has. And we then consume that nutrient-dense, rich, wonderful produce, and it gives us abounding health. This stuff can never give anything abounding health. Use the natural fertilizers, feed the soil, not the plants, and you will have success. Now, let me know if you have any more questions. I'm sure I missed some certain things on this, but don't be too concerned with how much of this stuff, okay? So just start off with a cup of, like I already told you, okay? So, all right, my friends.